Hello and welcome to our virtual yoga class. My name is Vanessa. I'm here to support you for the rest of the class. We'll begin by laying on our backs, noticing that as we transition to lay on our back is an opportunity to practice yoga, arriving to your body and your breath as you transition down onto the mat. Inhaling, and then I recommend exhaling, sighing out. Notice that it might take a few moments to corral your attention to your breath, to your body. Legs are long, palms can face up towards the ceiling, or hands can rest on your chest or belly. Scan your neck, down your spine, now the length of your legs to your toes. It's a quick body scan there, noticing what's there. Inviting an intentional breath, inhale and exhale. Inhale. You're noticing your belly expand, ribcage expand. You're noticing your breath, where it feels comfortable and even where it feels challenging. Take an intentional breath where you're lengthening the length of your inhale and exhale more than you're accustomed to. Take that deep breath. When we're busy, we tend to subconsciously invite shallow breathing. When we're more intensive with the breath, we have an opportunity to remind ourselves and what that full breath is like. Once again, see what feels comfortable or uncomfortable. What is challenging about a long, deep breath? What is easy? Intentional breath, inhale, you can exhale, sigh out. As we sigh out, we start to notice that physical release, mental, emotional release. We're using our breath to unite our physical, mental, emotional bodies as we're exploring our strength, our flexibility, our balance. Another intentional breath here. Belly expands, exhale, sigh out, release. We're going to invite a full body stretch, lifting our arms up overhead, pointing our toes. You can lift your abdomen up towards the ceiling. Release tension throughout the neck, the shoulders, lengthen your arms. You can swivel to the left, to the right. This is a gentle opening throughout the body. It's an opportunity to take inventory. And then start to release that full body stretch. We're going to focus on our lower body, specifically the hamstrings and hips. Bend your left knee here, and then lengthen your leg up towards the ceiling. Interlace your fingers behind your knee here. Lift your heel up towards the ceiling, point your toes downwards towards you. Now invite a stretch around the calf muscle. You can rotate your ankle clockwise, counterclockwise here. After a few rotations, you can focus a little bit more on your hamstrings. You can lengthen your leg as much as you can here. Inhale, exhale. One or two more breaths here. Breathe into your boundary. And then we're purposely practicing slow mindful movements here. I want you to slowly release your heel down towards the floor. As we learn to slow our body's movements, it's one way to help slow down our thoughts. We immerse ourselves in our bodies. We notice what that slow, intentional action feels like in our bodies. Same thing as we lift up our right leg, let's slowly bend that right knee, slowly lengthen your right leg, noticing what's opening up, what feels tight. You can interlace your fingers behind your thigh, lengthen your leg. You can always have a little micro bend to your knee, and then rotate your ankle. Take a moment here to focus on those toes and heels, balls of the feet. These are areas we tend to not focus on. And then after a few moments here, you can press your toes down towards you, or what I mean is press your heel up towards the ceiling. Intensify that stretch around the calf muscle. Focus on your hamstrings. You can lengthen your leg just a little bit more. Hold here. Now you're breathing into your boundary. So what I mean by boundaries, we tend to hold our leg up. It's easy to get passive. When you're active, you're noticing your boundary and seeing how can you stretch and open up a little bit more. You're inviting a deep belly breath to support you in exploring that boundary. And then practicing those slow mindful movements, release your foot back down towards the floor. Press both soles of the feet together, our butterfly pose. We'll take a moment of rest and pause here before the more active portion of class. Palm can face up towards the ceiling, framing your hips. Release around the hips and the tailbone, lower back. Invite some full deep belly breaths. Belly expands on your inhale. Notice that release. Deep full belly breath. So you can go back to some natural breathing if that feels a bit more comfortable for you. Soften the neck down to the spine. It's a practice, softening and letting go. Inhale. Exhale, release. Bring both feet together, both knees together. Feet float off the floor, hands towards knees. Round your spine, forehead towards your knee, chin towards your chest. Hold. And then release, lift up. Sit in a cross-legged position. We focused a little bit there on our lower body. Let's focus on our upper body. Inhale, sweep our arms up overhead. Palms up towards the ceiling. Hold here. Ground your sit bones onto the floor. Release your hands behind your head. Press elbows towards the back. And then twist towards the left and towards the right. Remaining in one side a little longer. If it suits you, or just going back, or just shifting back and forth between one side and the next. Once again, feel free to hold one side. That's where your attention is. And then release your hands. Grip your right knee with your hand, with your left hand, and now twist towards the right. So now you're taking your chin towards your right shoulder. You're using your grip to intensify the twist. Invite a comfortable breath. And then release. Opposite side. Take your chin towards your left shoulder. Grip your knee for a more intense stretch. Hold. And then release, come back to center. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Interlace your fingers, palms up, hold. And anchoring your sit bones onto the mat. Round your spine, chin towards chest, palms towards the front. Hold. Separate your shoulder blades. And then start to tilt forward. We're going to shift into our downward facing dog. Hold your down dog. You're in your upside down V here. Palms are open, fingertips spread wide. You're pressing through your palms as you bring your chest closer towards your thighs. You're inhaling and exhaling deeply. Inhale. Exhale. From your downward facing dog, shift into a child's pose, either knees close together or towards the edges of your mat. Gather 3 powerful breaths here. After about 3 breaths, we lift back up into our downward facing dog. Hold your down dog. Lift your hips up towards the ceiling. Heels are lifted. Imagine a breath here from your fingertips to your toes. You're inviting upper body strength here. Breathe into the backs of your legs. Decompress in the lower back and the mid back. Don't forget a deep belly breath. Use that breath to help regulate you physically, mentally, emotionally. And now release your knees down towards the floor, child's pose. See if you can invite 3 intentional breaths. Notice your first, second, and third breath. Then after those 3 breaths, press your palms onto the mat. Lift back up, downward facing dog. Inhale and exhale. Hold your down dog. We're purposely holding the pose, breathing into our palms, our heels. Inhale, exhale, plank pose. You want to step your feet back just a little bit here. Palms are beneath your shoulders. Engage your glutes for extra support. Release down towards the floor. Now your elbows will remain close to your torso here. We're going to hold our upward facing dog. So let's make sure that we are in alignment here. Your palms are framing your chest. Your elbows are not splayed open. You're making sure your elbows stay close to your torso. Tops of the feet are on the floor. Now use that upper ab strength, or notice that upper ab strength as you lift up, lengthen your elbows. I'm also engaging my glutes. Watch the lower back, mid back. And there's a stretch in the abdomen as well. Curl your toes, upper ab strength, downward facing dog, hold. Hold your downward facing dog, powerful inhale, exhale, and then shift into a plank pose. As you shift into your plank pose, on an exhale, release down towards the floor. Inhale up into an upward facing dog. And then exhale into your downward facing dog. So we're starting to move a little quicker here. 2 more rounds. From downward facing dog, shift into a plank pose. Release down towards the floor. Inhale up into an upward facing dog. And then shift into your downward facing dog. One more round, plank pose. Release down towards the floor. Inhale up, upward facing dog. And then exhale into your downward facing dog. Remain there in your downward facing dog. And now take your gaze between your hands. Walk or jump up to that forward fold. Inhale halfway up. Exhale, release. We're going to roll up slowly to standing. Head comes up last. Make any adjustments with your feet, making sure they're at about hips width distance apart. You can shift into a mountain pose with hands in front of your heart center, or you can take your hands to frame your hips. Either expression here. 3 breaths. We inhale and exhale for the day we've had. We inhale and exhale for this moment. We inhale and exhale for the rest of our day. Release your hands. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead, palms up towards the ceiling. Lift your heels halfway or all the way up and hold. Keep your gaze steady. Release your hands, release your heels, paddle your feet back and forth. Keep your feet about hips width distance apart. We're going to shift into a chair pose. You're lengthening your arms out, bending your knees, firing up your glutes, your quads, lifting your tailbone. Here's a demonstration of it on the side. Inhale. Exhale, bend your knees further, fold down, forward fold. Soften your neck and head, please, here. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. This time we're going to sweep our arms up overhead. Inhale. And then hands in front of our heart center. Inhale here. Exhale. Release your hands, lift your arms up overhead. Palms up towards the ceiling. Lift your heels halfway or all the way up. Inhale. Exhale, release your heels, release your hands. We're going to shift into a goddess pose. We're going to lengthen our stance. Take our left toes to the left, right toes to the right. Bend to our knees. We drop our tailbone. Hands in front of your heart center or lift your arms up. Hold. It's a very grounding pose. Similar to your chair pose, but much more open. We inhale, exhale. Notice that breath that begins at the belly. And then release your pose. Now face your toes towards the front. Take your hands to your hips. Hinge at the hips. We're going to fold halfway. As you're folding halfway, you're shifting your attention to your glutes, your hamstrings. And now being mindful of your neck and head, slowly release, making sure you're softening the neck head as you release and intensify that stretch around the hamstrings. You're also opening throughout the lower back, hips, and glutes. Down to the calves. Your hands can rest on the floor. You can grip your toes with your fingers. You can cup your elbows with your hands. 5 breaths. Feel free to hear your inhale and your exhale.
the macro bend to your knees. Inhale, exhale, one more breath. I'm going to start to take your hands up to your hips, press through your heels, lift halfway up, and then all the way up.
Shift back up into a mountain pose. As I counter pose, we'll shift into an extended mountain pose. We lift our arms up overhead, palms face each other. There's an arch to our spine, our chest is open. Remain in this extended mountain pose, grounding through your heels. Now dive down, forward fold.
Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. Your choice how you come up to standing. Either roll up slowly or sweep your arms up overhead and make it your practice.
3 breaths, either mountain pose, hands framing your hips or palms in front of your heart center. Inhale here and exhale. As we welcome our breath, we welcome our experience. It's enormously difficult to slow down, be with the body, check in what's going on. That's a skill that we cultivate. And then after your breaths, we'll release our hands. We'll shift into a tree pose, ground that left foot onto the mat, and then take your right foot to rest on your ankle, noticing you're already activating your tree pose here. You can always remain here, and what I mean by remain here is just we all have different ways that we are approaching our tree pose. We're learning different aspects of our tree pose. That means your foot can go higher to your shin, your calf, or you can use your hands to find that grip for your heel onto your thigh. Find that expression of tree pose that works for you right now. And then keep your gaze steady. See if you can invite a nice calm breath. Invite that inner equilibrium, inner equanimity. Noticing that chaos and that stillness exist in this pose. Feel free to step in or out of the pose. If you fall out, just try again. Even breath and invite that stillness. Release your hands, start to release the pose. Pedal your feet back and forth. Let's ground that energy to a chair pose. Bend our knees, arms shoot forward. Exhale, fold down, forward fold.
One round, inhale, halfway up. Exhale, release. Be intentional how you come up to standing. You can sweep your arms up overhead or roll up slowly.
Take a moment to arrive to your body, arrive to your breath as continuous practice in each moment in the class. And then prepare for your tree pose. Now the opposite side. Now our left foot rests against our ankle. Either remain here or take your foot higher. Find a steady point to focus on. Inhale. Exhale. Noticing the paradox of lots of movement and chaos and stillness. Inhale. Exhale, release your hands, release the pose, pedal your feet back and forth. Shift into our goddess pose. Lengthen your stance. Right toes to the right, left toes to the left. 90-degree bend to your knees. Drop your tailbone. Hands can remain in front of your chest, or you can lift your arms up overhead. Engage those glutes, those quads, lots of strength there. Core strength as well. Inhale. Very stable and grounding pose. And then release the pose. Wide-legged forward fold. This time we're inviting an upper body stretch. Interlace your fingers behind you. Extend your elbows, fold halfway. Place attention to the backs of your legs. Now fold all the way, softening your neck, your head. Keep your elbows extended behind you. If you prefer to release your hands, go for it. Feel free to hear your inhale and exhale. Draw those shoulder blades closer together. Release your hands onto the mat. Bring your feet closer together. We're shifting into a regular forward fold. Soften your neck, your head here. Moving slowly, move through a vinyasa. Inhaling halfway up. Exhaling, release, step back into your plank pose. From your plank pose, shift down towards the floor. Inhale up into your upward facing dog. And then shift into your downward facing dog. Pedal your feet back and forth in this downward facing dog. If you want to open up more around your hips, hamstrings. And then release your downward facing dog and shift back into a child's pose. Take this moment of pause and rest, inhaling, receiving anything that supports you, exhaling, releasing anything that doesn't. Two more breaths in your child's pose. From your child's pose, start to shift up into your tabletop. Inhale up into your cow pose. Exhale, round your spine into your cat pose. Move at your own pace. Either moving with your breath or holding one of these poses for an extra breath cycle. Do be mindful of your lower back, releasing any compression throughout the lower back. Be mindful of your upper back around your neck, releasing any tension there. Notice the length of your spine, lower back, mid back, upper back. Use your palms and the tops of your feet and knees and shins to help stabilize you.
Our attention is mostly on our spine, but we're using other parts of our body to support us in alignment and shifting into a deeper stretch and release. And after a few moments there, lift your right leg, bend your knees, stack your hips. And then release your knee onto the floor. We're going to prepare for pigeon pose. We're going to take our hands forward, take our right knee close to our right wrist. We're going to lengthen that left leg out behind us. Now you can remain here. This is more comfortable for you, go for it. Maybe keeping your torso lifted. Otherwise, to increase the intensity around our hip, we drop down towards the floor, either keeping our head lifted, forearms on the floor, or we drop our forehead to a fist or all the way down towards the floor. You're dropping your belly towards the floor. Most of your attention's on that right hip. You're releasing any rounding in the lower back. So you can go ahead and take a look at me. This is me rounding my lower back and mid back. You want to release that, dropping your belly towards the floor here. About 5 breaths here. Inhale. Exhale and release. Shift back into your tabletop, hands beneath your shoulders. We're going to lift our left leg, bend our left knee, stack our hips, hold. And then prepare for our pigeon pose, taking our hands forward, taking our knee towards our left wrist, extending that right leg back. Lengthen throughout the spine here. And then release, either keeping your head lifted or forehead on a fist or all the way down towards the floor. About 5 breaths. Belly shifts towards the floor. Attention, most of it on the left hip.
Another breath here. Inhale, exhale. Take your hands onto the floor, shift back up, tabletop, one cow and cat pose. Inhale. Exhale, round your spine, cat pose. And then release. We're going to sit with our legs out in front, flex both feet. And then fold. Breathe into your boundary. And then release. Take your palms towards face the ceiling. A little core workout. Tuck your chin towards your chest. Hover, feet float off the floor. Glutes, quads, core are engaged. Hold. Release, full body stretch. Interlace your fingers. Point your toes. Lift your abdomen up towards the ceiling. Release, bend your knees. We'll shift into a twist, dropping our knees to the right, dropping our head towards the left. Our arms come out to a T. Scan your neck down your spine to your hips. Inhale. Exhale. Release, opposite side. Drop your knees towards the left. Turn your head towards the right. You want to make sure your head and your knees are facing opposite directions. Soften neck down the spine to your hips. Inhale. Exhale, come back to center. Feet float off the floor. Grip your feet with your hands. Start to lengthen your legs out. Bend both knees. Take that final stretch here.
From the toes and heels down the length of your spine to your hamstrings, to your lower back, hips. You can rock to the left, to the right. You can lengthen one leg more than the other. You can bend both knees generously, lengthen both legs generously. Take a few moments here, or invite a few moments here. And then you'll start to release the pose to shift into your final resting pose of the class, your Shavasana. Legs long, palms facing up towards the ceiling. This is a pose that teaches us the wisdom of doing nothing. In this pose, we create space in our bodies to let go, to receive, to integrate physically, mentally, emotionally, in a way in which we're not controlling the process. Soften your forehead and jaw, neck, shoulders. Follow that line of energy from your shoulders to your elbows, wrists, and fingertips. Soften the upper back, mid back, lower back. Down to our hips, behind our knees, to ankles and toes. Observing any thoughts and sensations without judgment, just noticing.
We'll start to shift our attention back to our breath. Inviting a generous and leisurely inhale and exhale. Restore some movement to your fingertips, your toes. You have the option of inviting a full body stretch or turning your body to one side. Welcome your breath. And then after another breath or two, start to make your way up to your seat in whichever position is comfortable for you. And then we'll take a moment to appreciate and welcome our breath, noticing that by welcoming our breath, we welcome our experience. In honor of our breath, we'll seal the class with an intentional breath cycle. Let's take our hands in front of our heart center. Inhale here. Exhale. And in the tradition of yoga, the highest in me sees the highest in you. May we walk with each other in gratitude.